All right, everybody. Today we're talking about May and specifically the books that I read in May of 2025. There were 5 of them. There was 2 LitRPGs. There was kind of a steampunky adventure. There was 1 grand epic fantasy. And then there was 1 urban fantasy. And we're going to talk about them. I'm also going to share with you what I did on other channels as well throughout the month of May. So buckle up and here we go. I'm going to try to do this, by the way, with as little editing as possible. For those of you who like the more kind of put together professional production types of videos, I'm going to try to work on more of those in the next week or two as we get into June. But for time constraints and just because I want to get this video out in a timely manner, we're going to just kind of rock this, kind of however it goes. All right, let's start with the first book that I read. And by the way, we will award a book of the month once I get to these 5. The first book that I read is Dungeon Crawler Carl 7, This Inevitable Ruin. Now, you may be asking yourself, but Brian, this is a top 10 series of yours, and this came out on audio several months ago. How are you just finishing it up in May? And for that answer, I will refer you to some of my earlier videos. I had a personal tragedy in my life that happened, and it really put an immediate halt to my reading. So I did get around finally to completing This Inevitable Ruin. So what did I think of this book? Well, by the way, there's going to be no spoilers whatsoever in this video, so you can feel free to listen and kind of get my unfiltered thoughts. Here's the deal. Dungeon Crawler Carl, as I just mentioned, is a top 10 series for me of all time. I have been preaching, like I say, I've been preaching the word of Carl, I want to say since 2020, maybe when the first audiobook came out, but I've been reading LitRPG, you guys, since 2012, so this is not a new rodeo for me. This Inevitable Ruin, however, was not one of my favorites in the series. The main reason is, well, there's a couple. One, it is entirely possible that I was listening to this book through a lens of grief. My mom passed away, and it was really kind of hard to focus on much besides that. And anything that I did focus kind of was filtered through whatever was going on in my mind at the time. So it's possible that some of my more just so-so reaction to This Inevitable Ruin was a little bit due to that. But I think mostly it had to do with the format of the floor. Now, without giving anything away, in each one of these dungeon floors, there's kind of a particular structure to it, more like a theme. And there have been some books that I've noticed in Dungeon Crawler Carl that when I don't care for the book as much as the rest of the series, it doesn't have anything to do with the characters because the characters are largely the same. If anything, we get more, additional characters, but it's not character moments that kind of fall short for me. It's more of the structure of the floor itself. I found this to be true in book 3 with the Anarchist Cookbook, which I actually love that book, but I could not stand the iron tangle for the floor structure. And for This Inevitable Ruin, this is all about faction wars. And Matt Dinneman does a lot of things. Let's try that again. Matt Dinneman does a lot of things really great, but I'm not so sure, kind of big military fantasy, factions on factions is really in his wheelhouse as much as many of the other things that he's more skilled at than other fantasy authors. I think it's good that he stretched himself to do it, but it just didn't work for me. I didn't find myself captivated at all by the idea of faction wars. I didn't really love the execution of faction wars, and I was left sort of at the end of the book going, all right, well, we got through it. Let's get to more, better foundational dungeon types of stuff that I've come to love in Dungeon Crawler Carl. So what would I rate this book? For me, it's still a 4. It's hard for me to rate anything below a 4 for Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I also think that while I don't reread books very often, I might actually do it for that one. For, reasons, number one, Jeff Hayes is amazing to listen to. I could listen to him reading, audiobooks all day long. long. But the second thing is I really want to make sure that I'm giving this book a fair assessment, and it's not kind of coming from my grief-filtered brain, that maybe I could give it a bit of a higher mark if life was a little bit more normal for me when I was consuming the book. So Dungeon Crawler Carl 7, This Inevitable Ruin, for me, just an okay entry in the series. There haven't been any terrible entries in the series for me at all. Let's move on to the next book. And the next book is Janny Wurts, Ships of Merior, Part 2. Some of it, is called The War Host of Vastmark in the European editions, where in the United States editions, this was all built into one book. Now, Janny herself has designed this book, or she did design this book, to be one volume, one story arc. However, like I said, due to the length of the book and due to the fact that, some of the people we're doing a read along with are in other countries where it comes in multiple books, we decided that we are going to split this thing up into parts 1 and parts 2. So for me, I read part 2 in May. What did I think of The War Host of Vastmark, or Ships of Merior Part 2, as it were? I love it. I absolutely love this series. I think I rated this about a 4.75 in my brain when I was reading it. And another kind of weird side effect that I've been going through since the loss of my mom is that particular details in books are falling out of my mind a little bit faster than they used to. I've been told by people who have gone through this before that that will get better, but I loved the book. I mean, there's really not much not to like if you like epic fantasy. Janny Wurts has very few peers when it comes to vocabulary and prose. She has very few peers when it comes to leaving breadcrumb trails to try to sort out what's going on, but maybe winds them in a labyrinth a little bit. So while you think you might know what's going on, it reveals itself later in ways that are a little bit unexpected and get beyond some of the tropes that epic fantasy has become known for. I absolutely love this book. I am so glad I am reading this series, and we'll talk more a little bit here in the video today about our next discussion. But yeah, Ships of Merior 2, or The War Host of Vastmark, big recommend for me, as is obviously the entire series, The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. Next up, urban fantasy, Ben Aaronovitch, The Rivers of London. Now, I have to thank one of our amazing patrons, Sarah Beth, for sending me both book 1 and book 2 of this series. Book 1 being called, obviously, here, The Rivers of London. This follows a police, a police cop. That's the same thing, right? This follows a cop in London as he's all of a sudden finding out that the paranormal actually exists and wizards exist, and he's being asked to solve a crime that apparently there are some ghosts involved, and the supernatural is also a big part of that. So, if you've watched this channel at all, you know I'm a huge urban fantasy fan. I've made 2 dedicated videos about urban fantasy. I'm about to make a 3rd one sometime in either June or July. So the genre for me is fantastic. I absolutely love it. That said, however, Rivers of London for me, and I know I keep dropping this book and picking it up, whatever. You guys, hey, it's unedited today. Rivers of London for me did not work. It was very British. And so what do I mean by that? I feel like the author went out of his way to put as much British slang into this book as possible. And I don't really know why he did it, but it took away from the story's momentum when you don't understand certain words in the vernacular. Now, here's the thing. I used to live in London, right? So I'm not totally new to this, but when even I am going, this sucker reads so British, there is something to be said for that. Now, that in and of itself isn't why I didn't like the book. I didn't care for the book because I didn't care for the main character. I just kind of found him sort of seedy. I found him sort of boring. I didn't really care whether he solved the mystery or not. And I certainly didn't care, what happened in the mystery altogether. It was just wholly uninteresting to me. So Sarah Beth, you know I love you. You know that I appreciate you for sending me this book in the first place, because by all measures, if you were to think of one booktuber that might dig something like this, it would probably be me, because I'm such a huge urban fantasy fan. This was not it. I will not be continuing along with this series. I can't recommend it. If you like urban fantasy and you want to give it a shot and you sort of like cop dramas and you want to maybe find out if this is for you or not, then go for it. But from my perspective, this just did not hit the mark for me. Definitely a miss. I think I rate this maybe 2 stars. I think I put 2 stars on Goodreads. Maybe I put 2.5 stars. It's somewhere in there. You know, Mike and I from Mike's Book Reviews were actually reading this at the same time, and we were kind of texting each other back and forth how British this was. And I think he texted me that this is more British than Doctor Who, and I texted him back, this is more British than the Dead Queen of England. Apologies. I know that just cost me 10 subs, by the way. Guys, it's BellTube. We're unfiltered here. Anyway, Rivers London, let's move on. Let's move on to another book that I absolutely loved. This is the one that I was talking about being more kind of steampunk sci-fi adventure. This is book 2 in Josiah Bancroft's The Books of Babel, The Arm of the Sphinx. All right, we made a reading rebound here with this book because I absolutely loved it. Now, I reviewed Senlin Ascends, I want to say back in maybe March, maybe February, somewhere around there, and it was a 5-star book for me. This one's a little bit less than that. For me, I would put it about 4 stars or so, but the core essence of what I believe, at least for the first 2 books, you know, in the Books of Babel, it's still here. We're still following Thomas Senlin, but the difference is, and again, without spoilers, in book 1, we had a lot of companions come and go quite a bit, in book 1 being Senlin Ascends. In book 2, we have a much more focused cast where he's assembled his crew. This starts off basically with a crew of, I want to say, about 5 people, and we follow them through the entirety of the book. Really a different kind of a format. Much less so exploration of the tower itself than other kind of elements attached to the tower. And that's all I can really say without spoiling much. But Josiah Bancroft doesn't miss a beat here. This is a page turner. This will get you thinking of ideas maybe you've never had before, because he is so innovative and he is so original. It's a big recommend for me so far through 2 books. I have heard that book 4 can be a bit decisive. Who knows? When we get to book 4, I will put my BellTube's, foot down, and we will make a decision one way or the other. Speaking of decisions, we're going to talk about that later here in the video. But this is a recommend for me, and this is about a 4-star as well. So the 5th book that I read, also LitRPG, I did this on audio. This is book 5 in Andrew Rowe's Arcane Ascension series, and it's called When Wizards Follow Fool. Excuse me. I told you I'm not editing this. This is called When Wizards Follow Fools. Well, I think I might have been the fool on this book, because this is such an inconsistent series to me. Book 1 is called Sufficiently Advanced Magic, and I have recommended that book to a lot of people before who have never read LitRPG, but kind of feel like they want to give it a shot. Now, the series itself, I've always said, kind of has 1 foot in LitRPG and 1 foot over here in normal fantasy, and it sort of still does in some regard, but the parts that he puts in that are kind of more on the LitRPG are even too LitRPG for me. I give this, thought almost kind of like a hard magic system times a million. So think of the hardest magic system you've ever thought about, okay? Typically, Brandon Sanderson is known for a lot of hard magic systems. What Andrew Rowe has done in this Arcane Ascension series is that he's got this great epic fantasy story going on with political intrigue and wars and accumulating new abilities, and all of that is really great. But then he digs down into something that I call mana minutia. And the magic in this world is really based on mana, as it is in a lot of different kinds of games or books or whatever. But he drills down into the minutia of it. And he does it not like in a paragraph or in a couple of pages. He dedicates chapters, it feels like, to getting into these glyphs and these subglyphs. And it's just honestly so exposition heavy and so irrelevant to the actual story that's being told. It does not move the plot further at all. It's almost like a tip of the hat to people that want such a hard magic system that it is actually more science than magic. It doesn't work for me at all. I gave that book 2 stars, and a lucky 2 stars it is. I'm still continuing with the series, but I will say his spin-off series, which is called The Six Sacred Swords, I like far, far better at this point than the Arcane Ascension series. All right, so that's 5 books. Let's talk about a book of the month. You already know what it is. I'm reaching over with 2 hands to pick it up, so you already know what it is. Obviously, Ships of Merior, Part 2, otherwise known as The War Host of Vestmark. May's Book of the Month by a mile. Janny, I'm sorry you had nobody even close in the competition this month. You ran away with it. All right, let's talk about some videos that I made, or at least some channels that I was on in the month of May. Video output here was a little bit diminished. Like I said, kind of getting over my mom a bit still. And oh, by the way, I gotta say thank you to the amazing patrons of this channel. If you're interested in the Patreon, the link is in the description. It's less than a couple of bucks, and we have a really cool, intimate group of people in our Patreon, and they're just the best. That's all I can say. And if also you like this type of vibe on the channel and you think I might have some value for you moving forward, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. That's the like button. That tells YouTube to show us to more people. And if you really want to find out more about what we're all about, consider hitting the subscribe button. The subscribe button? How about hitting the subscribe button? See, there's a B in the word subscribe. I think we both just learned something, didn't we? All right, let's talk about some videos. This is so crazy. I should have really had a glass of water while I'm doing this today, because I think I'd have gotten through it a lot better. So videos that I did. All right. Back on May 7th, it was actually my birthday. We did a birthday live stream. I put a card right here to it, and I want to say we had like 9 or 10 or 11 special guests that came on the live stream. And as some of your BookTube favorite people, I won't get into what we talked about, but again, I'll leave a link to it. I want to thank everybody who joined me, both on camera and of course in the chat, and of course on Team Replay for that birthday stream, which was live. It made a lot of difference to me to be able to do that, especially, like I said, with my mom not here for the first time in my life on a birthday. You guys absolutely made it very, very special. What else did I do? Oh, you know what? I was on with the Friday Night Delight himself, Jimmy Nuts, on his acclaimed show, truly the gold standard of interview shows here on BookTube. I was on Chatting with Nuts, and not only was I on Chatting with Nuts, I heard back from the Friday Night Delight himself, Jimmy Nuts, saying it was a top 3 episode of Chatting with Nuts that he's ever done. Now, we're talking about he's closing in on the 100 episode mark of Chatting with Nuts. If you'd like to see me back on Chatting with Nuts, don't forget to go to the Fantasy Network. It's in the description below, and send him a message and put it in his comments. Hey, I'd love to get Brian from BellTube back on Chatting with Nuts. Let's flood his inbox. Let's make his life already more stressful than it is by spam. No, I'm kidding, you guys. We love Jimmy over here. All right, Jimmy, thank you for having me on with Chatting with Nuts. You're coming back on my shows very soon. What else did we do? We did a talk on Talking Story. Of course, that's my brother in the South, John Minton, for his book release of Discovery. Now, you can probably see it in the background here. I was one of the beta readers on the book, and it is a hit. And I am so glad that so many people are finding this book and loving this story as much as I did. The minute I finished the book, I put the book down, I picked up my phone, I called John. See, we're of an age where we actually call people and we don't freak out when, the phone is ringing and it's actually somebody wanting to talk to us. We kind of get okay with that, right? So I called John, and all I told him was, I said, dude, brother, man, you got a hit here. And he was like, really? Do you think so? Because if you know Johnny's super humble and he doesn't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, dude, you got a hit here. And the long and the short of it is, I'm not the only one who thinks so. It's getting rave reviews all across BookTube. And the best part is, or a best part I should say, is that he was able to secure a multi-book deal with Podium Entertainment for the audiobooks, starting with book 1 coming out hopefully relatively soon. And they've assigned 7 narrators to this book, right? He's not getting one narrator. I should say they aren't getting, because it is John and Amy and Jacob. They're not getting one narrator. They're getting 7 established voice actors to do all these parts. This is like a full cast. It is a full cast, I should say. So congrats, you guys. You deserve every bit of the success that you have coming your way. What else was I on? Talking about congrats, I was on Tori Talks with my good friend Tori Tekken, and she had a release party for her book called Cold Silver for Souls. I was an alpha reader for this book, and it's a great one. I mean, this is so simple, you guys. At least, here's the thing, all right? I always try to read my friends' books when I can, all right? It's not always easy to do, but I try to get to them when I can. And I'm always crossing my fingers that they're going to be good. Now, Tori is 3 for 3 with me because I've read Phased, I've read The Bloodstones, and now I have read Cold Silver for Souls. They're all winners. Cold Silver for Souls, we had a release party over on her channel. There's a bunch of us. I'll link it in the description. You can go check it out. This is a Western fantasy, and our main character is a necromancer, and she's got this corpse that she schleps around with her doing her dirty work. It's really, really enjoyable, and it is very different flavored than a lot of the epic fantasy out there. And if you guys need a slump buster, by the way, I will tell you without any reservation, Cold Silver for Souls is definitely a slump buster kind of a book. Maybe I'll do a video on slump busters. I should probably do that. I want to thank a couple of people too before we get into the one for the road today. Also, I should say one for the road. For Whom the Bell Tolls is returning in June. I'll announce the guest very, very soon. It's going to be June 18th. I'm very excited about who is lined up. It's going to be one for the record books for sure. I got to thank some people, right? Because I did get some book mail in the month of May. Let's talk about it. I got 3 books. One of them is from a good friend of the channel here. Chance Dillon sent me a copy of his book, Mercy, Tears of the Fallen. This is an advanced reader copy, right? I was not an advanced reader because I didn't read it yet, or I haven't read it yet. Chance, thank you for sending this to me. This will be on the bookshelves by the time I do the next video, but I wanted to share with everybody here that you did send it. I will read it. I don't know exactly when. Here's the challenge that I'm having with this book, everybody. I am reading Wars of Light and Shadow, and I am reading Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I'm doing it every other month. And that takes a lot of brain capacity that if you've been watching for the last 10 minutes, you're probably surprised that I have any brain capacity at all to do those kinds of series. Yet somehow I persevere. Anyway, I've been hearing this has a little bit of a Malazan flavor to it, and I'm a little hesitant to jump right into it while I'm still reading Malazan. So I think when I finish Malazan is probably the time I'm gonna get into this one, but I wanna thank Chance for sending it to me. I also want to thank Daw Books, because Daw Books has never sent me anything before, and it's not their fault. I've never asked them for anything before. But somebody from Daw reached out and said, hey, we noticed you commented on a video that was talking about the book called The Failures by author Benjamin Lyer. Would you like a copy to read and review? And Mike has just read this, and he was big on it. And I align about 98 to 99% of the time with Mike on books. And I said, all right, absolutely. If you want to send it, I'd be happy to read it. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. It might be July, it might be August, but it will be in the next 3 months for sure, because I want to thank Daw for sending this to me. Lastly, I want to thank my friend Billy, who is an IRL friend of mine, who found BookTube, I think through me. He didn't know BookTube existed, but he sent me this book. This is an Eaton Press version of Jim Butcher's Stormfront. This is book 1 in the Dresden Files. It's a real leather-bound edition with the gold sprayed edges. It's signed. It's the whole deal. This is just a really, really nice copy of Stormfront. So Billy, thank you so much. I'm glad that I was able to influence you to read the Dresden Files, and thank you for your just lovely gift to doing that. What else do I have for you guys? I know what I have. I have a one for the road. We're going to wrap this up quick today because, like I said, it's just a busy month over here. One for the road. Let's talk about decision making for a second. It's not always a comfortable thing for people to get into, and we can keep this brief today, but I want to talk about decision making as a skill, and as a skill that improves the more that you do it. If you can think about making decisions kind of like playing piano or practicing piano, the more you do it, the more effective you're probably going to be at getting a result that you want. Or maybe it's going to the gym, or maybe it's running. The more time and energy you put into activating those muscles, the better your results are probably going to be. The same goes for decision making. And here's my examples. Do you know people, maybe it's you, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a significant other, maybe it's just somebody in your life that can't make a decision to save their own life, even if it's about something totally irrelevant, right? What do you want for dinner tonight? Do you want Mexican or do you want Italian? And they're like lost. Or maybe you're like lost. And the default answer is, I don't know. What do you want? And we avoid making the decision. Now, a lot of the times we don't avoid making a decision because we don't want to be, offensive or, so generous that we're asking the other person to have whatever they would like. We're deflecting what's the word that I'm looking for? We're deflecting the responsibility for making a decision to somebody else. And that is an awful habit to get into. Now, some of you are not into that habit, and some of you have been in that habit for decades. And I am here today to tell you to start making decisions, even if they're stupid, irrelevant ones. If the choice is, do I want Mexican or Italian? Pick one and move on. If the choice is, do I want to read this book or that book? Pick one and move on. And I believe what you're going to find is the more actively you put decision making into your life, the better you're going to get at doing it. Think of it like as a muscle that is going to grow the more you activate it. You can't make big decisions in life if you are completely paralyzed when it comes to the minor, insignificant ones. Decision making is a skill. It needs to be a habit, and start with ones that really don't make a big difference in the world. So when the time comes that you actually have real decisions that you need to make, you are adequately suited to do it because you do it all day long. It's something that you've actually improved your skill at. All right, that's a long one for the road. It's longer than I thought it was, but I was kind of passionate about it, and I am passionate about it because I just see so many people who sit on fences and hem and haw and can't shit or get off the pot, right? Let's get good at making decisions. I had a fun month in May. I would like to know, what'd you read in May? What'd you watch in May? Are there some channels on BookTube that you think I'm missing that, I should be participating more in, watching and commenting? If there are, leave those in the comments. If you read some outstanding books in May, leave those in the comments as well. By the way, let's make today's word outstanding. If you've made it to the end of this video or this point of the video, throw the word outstanding in the comments. I always want to find out who's here for the whole trip with me. That's what I've got for you guys, everybody. Stay positive, and of course, here's your fortune.